I am not gay. I have relationships with women and sex with men.
And I got news for you. That means you're gay.
I'm retarded?
Fuck your couch, nigga. Buy another one, you rich motherfucker. Fuck your couch, nigga. Fuck your couch. Darkness is.
All my friends know the low rider. The low rider is a little higher.
That's tomorrow, and that is it for us today. And we will leave you with a... I can't do it. Okay. We'll do it live. Okay. We'll do it live. Fuck it. Do it live. I'll write it, and we'll do it live. Fucking thing sucks.
Wow, you gotta watch A Sip of Cinema, bro.
Nah, it's bloody shit, mate. Don't watch.
Hadouken! 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Oh, yeah, you know what it is? C Commander TV, Super Cinema, Episode 9, Beetlejuice, a special Halloween edition. How are you going, Andrew? Andrew Juice. I don't even know how to say that.
Juice. It's Andrew Juice.
It sounds like a drink.
Yeah, anything you put juice at the end of usually sounds like a juice or
Yeah.
a drink.
The bloody cat and the pumpkins are in front of my name, which is annoying. But I like
exorcism for you.
bioexorcism4u.com.au for your bioexorcism needs in Australia at the very least. In Australia, mate. All right, Beetlejuice. So we decided to do Beetlejuice because it's Halloween. So today is the 29th of October 2022 in Australia. So we got, I guess that means Halloween technically is on Monday. So this is close enough to Monday. So I might as well do a Halloween show today. And so what better movie than Beetlejuice? We thought we could do maybe a scary Halloween movie, but we decided to do Beetlejuice because it's a lot of fun. And it's a movie that I wanted to dive back into because I don't think I saw it after I saw it as a kid. So did you see it as an adult?
No, it's what I realized when I was watching it back again. I think the last time we watched it was probably when we were in primary school still even.
No, definitely. Because I remember like the Harry Belafonte songs that are featured in the movie were really popular when I was in primary school. So like, we'll get into it later when it comes up, but yeah, I watching it as an adult, it was so much fun. It was really funny, really inventive and creative and imaginative, even the special effects, which we'll talk about as well. But this is a sip of cinema, and so we have to sip something.
Juice. What juice do you have?
What juice are we sipping? So, I can never do this properly. I got the Shepherd and Neame 1698 Kentish Strong Ale. So the Shepherd, I love the Shepherd double stout. So I thought I'd try this. What have you got?
My juice is the La Trappe blonde. I don't know if you can
Oh, the
see it.
Trappe Blunt.
Yeah.
Yeah. So the La Trappe Quadrupel is the best beer I've ever had.
Yeah,
Best
they
beer
got
I've ever
a
had, probably.
they got a double, a triple, and a quadrupel.
Quadrupel. Yeah, it's the
Quadruple.
quadruple. You gonna pour that in?
Yeah. I got a crappy opener. But it worked first time.
It works. We got the juice open.
And I
You
got
gotta put it in
the La Trappe glass as well.
the special La Trappe glass. I can see Beetlejuice actually doing this, like a by a fire, like a fireplace, pouring it into some sort of freaking goblet.
No,
Like
bugs. You'd say bug skull, but bugs don't have skulls.
Oh yeah, like a skull. Yeah, like a skull goblet or something. It's a nice head. All right, so here's a toast to Beetlejuice, directed by Tim Burton, the genius. A wonderful, creative, and whimsical film that everyone can enjoy, even if you're a kid. Cheers to Beetlejuice.
I didn't say cheers. Cheers.
Damn, that's good.
The La Trappe has like the best mouthfeel. It just goes down so smooth.
It's a stunning beer.
Is
That's
it
why
La
it's so
Trappe or La Trappe?
I don't know. I'm not saying La Trappe. It sounds too weird.
It's not Aussie, that's for sure.
Definitely not. All right, without further ado, let's get into Beetlejuice. So, written by Malcolm McDowell, Larry Wilson, and a screenplay by Warren Scarron. And as I was saying before, directed by the great Tim Burton. I'm sure, like, Tim Burton seems like the type of director where everyone has at least one movie of his that they like. You know, he's made so many incredible movies that, you know, it's hard to not have a movie that you like from Tim Burton.
Edward Scissorhands, we got
Scissorhands, yeah.
Batman, Sweeney Todd, Sleepy Hollow.
Sweeney Todd. And the Johnny Depp what's it? The Mad Hatter one. Alice's Adventure, Alice in Wonderland. Didn't he do the Johnny Depp Willy Wonka as well? Charlie and the Chocolate Factory.
I think so. Yeah, I think he directed.
Yeah. So he did a few films with Johnny Depp, a few films with Michael Keaton, who of course.
Do you think this was our first Tim Burton movie?
Oh,
or do you think we watched Batman first? I can't remember. Because I think Batman was 89 and this is 88. So I assume we watched this first.
Yeah, I would assume that we watched this first. But I could never tell. That's too far away. But if we look at, whoops, wrong button. If we look at Tim Burton's filmography, Edward Scissorhands, Beetlejuice, Batman Returns. Actually, Batman Returns was my favorite Batman of that era, but he was the producer, not the director. Nightmare Before Christmas, Batman Forever as a producer. This would be better as a producer. Yeah. No, it's the director, Batman, Beetlejuice, Edward Scissorhands, Batman Returns. Ed Wood, one of my favorite movies from Johnny Depp. Sleepy Hollow.
And he did some animated things as well. And
Dark Shadows, that was animated. I did a Dumbo. Okay. Charlie and the Chocolate Corpse Bride, that was good.
Yeah, Cold Fright and Nightmare Before Christmas is
Yeah.
still very popular.
Yeah, so some really iconic movies. Tim Burton, a legend in Hollywood. Of course, we didn't know anything about who the hell Tim Burton was back then when we first watched it. But without further ado, we shall begin. Okay, so the film starts with an overhead shot of the village. So it's all like white houses, white picket fences, like just normal, like prototypical 1950s suburb. But it's like a little town as well. It's sort of a mix of country town and 50s suburb. And the music is very whimsical. So it's that Tim Burton touch of the music as well. Very whimsical, sort of sets the tone for the rest of the film. And then the camera sort of flies in and focuses on a house, a model house. And then you see a spider like crawling over the top of the house, which was an amazing way to sort of start the film. And then Alec Baldwin, sort of thing. Baldwin sort of picks up the spider and tosses it out the window. So Alec Baldwin, he plays Adam in this movie. So just the normal guy.
I'm dressed like Adam.
I thought you dressed like Adam. That's the first thing I thought of when I saw your shirt. And we get to see like the model town that he works on. So he sort of built this really interesting model town, a model of the town that they're living in. And him and his wife, Barbara, they sort of give each other vacation presents at the start. And you think they're on vacation, but they're actually still at home. So they're having their vacation at home. But they're a fun couple. They're in love, obviously. And then Jane shows up. So Jane's like a Karen, basically, just this annoying neighbor. So she shows up at like 6:45 in the AM.
Neighbor / real estate agent.
Yeah, that's right, real estate agent. And she mentions later in the film that she actually designed the inside of their house, to Otho's chagrin. And then huh?
But I think that was a lie, though, because I think it's Barbara and Adam, they designed it. I think they also mentioned. I think Adam also said that that's why they're so protective of the house, is because it's got that value to them, that they put that effort into it, that they designed everything. Yeah,
like their house is like an extension of his model. Like it's something creative that he comes up with, that they came up with together as a couple. And then Jane, she's talking about, you got to sell the house. It's too big for just two people. Maybe you're not going to have a family. Just sell it. So she's a real Karen. But then you get the impression that Adam and Bob are actually going to try to have kids, but they just haven't had any luck up to this point. And then the rest of the opening moments in the film, we're just getting an impression that it's just typical town, just normal, quiet, suburban type of town in the middle of America. So you see like the typical red fire trucks and like the barber shop. And then Adam is like picking up something from Maitland's hardware store. So it's all very normal.
That's their store, right? They're the Maitlands.
Yes.
So
correct.
So that's,
yes.
I guess they probably run that business together then, I assume.
Yeah. So they probably hired someone to actually staff it.
Yeah.
And then on the way home, Barb's driving and she almost runs over a dog. So we sort of see a preview of the dog at the hardware store. But then when they leave, the dog's like on the bridge. And so Barb swerves and then like crashes into the side of the bridge. And the car goes over into the river. So at that point in the film, the viewer doesn't know that they're dead because they come home dripping wet. without the car. So we're sort of clueless as to what happened between the accident and them coming home, completely free of injuries. And then when they come home, the fireplace actually turns on by itself. Right. And then she's like warming her hands. And then she discovers that she has like fire fingers. So she's got fire fingertips. I thought this was really interesting special effects because it's not CGI. Like it looks like her fingertips are actually like candles. So whatever they did, there's probably like a fake hand,
Yeah,
like a fake candle hand,
prosthetic hand.
prosthetic hand.
It looks too detailed, too realistic compared to the rest of the special effects.
Yeah.
This is probably
Yeah,
the best special effects in the whole movie.
I reckon for sure. Yeah. And then when this happens, Adam starts wondering what the hell's going on. And I say wonders how they actually got back to the house after the accident. So he says, "Oh, I'm going to go back to the bridge, retrace their footsteps." But then when he leaves the house, things sort of take a strange turn. Yes, right. So you can see things are a bit weird when Adam leaves the house. There's like sand everywhere and it looks like some sort of alien planet. And then when Barbara pulls him back in, she says that he's been gone for 2 hours, which is super weird. And then Bob says, "Oh, look at this," and then she shows a mirror, and then they don't have like a reflection in the mirror, which is super weird. And then on the table, there's an interesting book that they have to read called The Handbook for the Recently Deceased. So obviously that wasn't in their house before, but it's in the house now. So they're intrigued by that, and so they pick up the book and start reading.
But they didn't read much of it.
No, they didn't. Because they're trying to figure out if they're dead, really.
Yeah.
So there's a sort of the first thought that maybe things aren't what they seem, and there's a possibility that they might actually be dead. As crazy as that may seem, there's a possibility that they didn't survive the actual crash. And then we get a flash of Beetlejuice in his house. Well, just a short, like 10-second scene where we see candles and the Beetlejuice business cards. So Beetlejuice, a bioexorcist, and so we got his name 3 times because you have to say his name 3 times in order to summon him.
I found it unusual that we only meet him, or he's visually revealed like 25 minutes into the movie.
Yeah,
which I didn't realize, like, originally when we watched it when we were children, that he's like, because I looked that up. He's only in the movie for 17 minutes, and it's like a 1.5 hour movie. It was very surprising. Like,
no, it's true.
Like, I didn't realize that.
Yeah, he's barely in it. Now that we're older and can sort of process that information. Well, one thing that I picked up on the second viewing is the spelling of Beetlejuice's name.
Yeah.
So you can see Beetlejuice, and then the name of the film is Beetlejuice.
Yeah.
Like you would normally expect to spell it. So Beetlejuice, as it's spelled here, is actually the name of a star.
Yeah, I learned that as well.
Yeah. So So it's translated as the shoulder of the giant. And so it's one of the so it's in the Orion cluster or galaxy, whatever you want to call it. And then that's the shoulder of the giant, Beetlejuice, as a constellation in Orion. Yeah, so I thought there might have been a more mystical or mythological origin to the spelling of the name, but there isn't, I don't think. Yeah, I guess it's just like a whimsical name, Beetlejuice. But then the spelling is sort of connected to the constellation, so I guess that's sort of a interesting distinction to be made in terms of the spelling. So Beetlejuice is an exorcist for hire. So he's someone who sort of went off on his own. He was working for, I guess, a company that manages the dead. But then he was sort of a loose cannon and sort of did things his way. And so he got fired. And so he went into business for himself as an exorcist for hire. Then he goes into the obituary section to look for a job. And he sees a picture of Barbara and Adam, recently deceased. So that's that's the evidence we need to know that they're actually dead. And then back at the house, Adam's putting together a funeral scene in his model town, which is pretty funny. And then Barbara's walking around saying, "Where the hell are all the other dead people? If they're actually dead." And then Jane shows up to the house, but she can't hear them. Like Adam calls down to her, but like she ignores him because she can't actually hear him. And she's dressed in black as well. So that's further confirmation to them that they're both dead, and that their house is up for sale. And it's not long after that a new family moves in, Charles and Delia Dietz. So these are also interesting characters as well. Charles and Delia. So great character actors from the 80s and 90s. So they're sort of the yuppie New York couple moving into the quiet town. He's sort of this retail investor, and she's like this crappy artist. She does really bad sculptures.
Abstract art.
Yeah, and then her sculptures come to life later on in the movie, which is cool. And so Delia actually hates the design of the new house. She really hates it. But then and she jokes about burning it down because it's so ugly. And they also have a daughter named Lydia, played by Winona Ryder, who was a big deal back in the 90s. And so obviously she had a resurgence in Stranger Things, as everyone knows. But back then, Winona Ryder was sort of this young, sort of angsty. She always played the young, angsty teen in certain movies back in the 80s and 90s. So, and she's a bit of a photographer. She's always like taking pictures and stuff. And like she sees a spider, and she like wants to take a picture of the spider. She's fascinated by it, which sort of reinforces like her goth aesthetic as well. Yeah, and so we discover that Delia is a sculptor, and no one respects her art. She thinks her art is really awesome, but it's really bad, as we were saying before. But Charles is actually really excited about the house. He thinks it's perfect the way it is, but she's like walking around like scowling at it, which is why she hired this guy, Otho. So Otho shows up through the window. He climbs in through the window for some reason.
Because it's otherwise it's bad luck. Come through the doorway or something. So.
Yeah.
I find it also the dad. What's his name?
Charles.
Charles. He had some kind of nervous breakdown or something as well. So he's bringing the family out to the countryside to relax mostly.
Yeah.
And you know what I like watching the movie again? It reminded me of the animated series. Do you remember that?
Animated Beetlejuice series.
Yeah, we used to watch it. Like I watched the intro to it, and I was like, "Oh yeah, I remember this."
I
Yeah,
don't remember it.
when you see it, it should.
I don't remember it at all. Beetlejuice animated series. Why don't I remember this? Or maybe I do. If I see it in action, I'll probably remember it. If I actually see an episode or whatever. Beetlejuice
Yeah,
animated. I completely
in your
forgot
spare
about
time, you can check out the intro, and it'll be it should
that.
rekindle some long lost
Yeah.
memories.
No, for sure. So Otho and Delia are like walking around the house, like spray painting, like where they want to change the color of the wallpaper, for example. And Bob and Adam are like looking on in horror as these maniacs from New York are just like running roughshod over their house. But then they can't do anything about it because they're ghosts. So at that point, Adam sort of realizes, oh, we're ghosts. And so, like I said, Otho and Delia, they're like walking around because Otho's like this big deal interior decorator. He's really pretentious and artistic. And then they're sort of walking around and they go into a bedroom, and then Barbara tries to scare them. But it doesn't quite work because, you know, she's a ghost.
We just have to pray the other closets are bigger than this one. Look. Ozzy and Harriet.
So that's the first example of the style of special effects in this movie. So I thought the special effects was incredible. I thought it was really good, matching the style of the film, like the whimsy of Tim Burton's artistic style, I think. Because it's not perfectly, like, it's not perfect special effects, but I think the way it's designed is perfect for the movie. It matches the style, especially that scene.
Like watching it again, it does look very like dated special effects, but also reading about some of the background information of the production and the making of the movie, they only had like $1 million spent on special effects. So so Tim Burton purposefully used this kind of special effects style to give it a B grade kind of look, stylized look to it. So it was
exactly.
It was all purposefully done.
Exactly. So that's what artists do. They have limitations and then they create something special out of it. But that's insane then if they had a limited budget, the way it looks.
Yeah.
Because I think some of it's also stop like that stop style animation, whatever it's called.
Motion animation.
Stop motion. Yeah.
Yeah, it does look like that in some areas, yeah.
Yeah, so Delia's like walking around and dissing the house. She says the bathroom looks like an indoor outhouse.
What are they spray painting on the walls? Like different words and symbols and stuff?
No, they're spray painting different colors. Like the word that represents a color. So they want the, like mauve, for example, or vermilion. I don't know. Yeah. So that's what they're doing.
I saw Otho. He made like this symbol, like almost like an 8 without the top on it.
I think it's just doing a cross, like this sucks, or maybe he wants. I think he said he wants to remove the wall.
It could just be a cross, actually. Yeah. It's not important, but
yeah. And then they walk into the study, and Bob and Adam are trying to scare them again. This is really funny because Bob is standing there with a knife in a hand, and Adam's head in the other hand. So with a knife in one hand and Adam's head in the other hand. And that was a really awesome scene. To see Alec Baldwin's head. Like, this is really well done as special effects. Obviously, it's, it was this image was inserted in post-production, but it looks pretty seamless in the movie. Like, you can see some inconsistencies on this side, but overall, when you're watching the movie, you don't see that. You don't see it as dated. I don't think. I thought this is really well done. But it's just a hilarious visual scene. That's sort of Tim Burton's famous for. Just having like a visually interesting and humorous setup to the scene. And then Delia is sort of on the edge of a mental breakdown because Charles doesn't want to do anything to the study. He says, just leave the study for me. You can change whatever you want for the rest of the house, but just leave the study. And then another hilarious moment is when Adam like runs back to the attic, but he's headless. he doesn't know, he can't see where he's going. So he bumps into stuff. That was pretty funny. And then Delia mentions, there must be ghosts that want them out of there or something, which is interesting for her to say. Then we see Adam actually put his head back on, which is pretty funny. And then they're sort of at their wits' end, Barb and Adam, because Barb really wants to scare them to get them out of there, but she can't scare anyone because she's invisible, because she's a ghost. And so they leave the house, but then they encounter a sandworm. What do you think of the sandworm special effects in this movie?
I think, I think this is an example of a stop motion kind of animation, and it's, I think it's, it looks a bit dated to me.
I think it's fine because it's part of the, as you said, it's a stylistic choice.
Yeah, it reminds me a lot of the stop motion from A Nightmare Before Christmas. Like, it's all animated and that's entirely shot stop motion. But for stop motion, I think it suits the movie though.
Yeah,
so
I think
it does have a dated look.
Yeah, well, I think it looks better than if it was CGI because I think that's just the style of the movie. Like, everything sort of patchwork or clay, like made out of clay or sculpted. Like, everything starts with the model town, right? So the model town isn't a perfect representation of the town, but it's like this artistic rendering of the town. And so all the special effects are like an artistic rendering of the thing, or the visual elements that Tim Burton is trying to create within the film. So in that sense, I think it's consistent with everything else in the movie. I think it's just really creative to have like the head coming out of the head. To have like
kind of like aliens.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I like how they didn't explain any of this, like the sandworm world.
Yeah.
Like, it just happens to them, but no one explains like why there's a sandworm world, in between life and death. So I thought that was good. And then they go back to their house after they encounter the sandworm, and she's bummed out because they realize they can't get rid of them. They're sort of trapped in the house with these terrible people. And then we get a scene where Delia, Charles, and Lydia are eating Chinese food by candlelight. And Lydia makes a comment about the MSG in the food. And then Charles is like, he promises Lydia that he'll build her a dark room in the basement. And then she says, "My whole life is a dark room." She's just like supercharged goth character in this movie. I thought Winona Ryder was pretty funny in this movie.
Yeah,
I thought she did a good job. So much she says so over the top. So Charles couldn't be happier. Like, he's having a ball living in the countryside in his new house. But his family is still getting used to everything. And then Lydia sort of wants to keep the house the way it is. She likes sort of the rustic design. But at this point in the film, we're sort of given the impression that Lydia has some sort of connection to the underworld because of her, I guess, her gothic nature, or some sort of perceptive powers that she has that no one else has, especially her parents. So she's sort of more aware of things than other people. And then the next day, construction begins on the renovations in the house. And we see a hilarious scene where one of Delia's sculptures is being airlifted in front of the house and sort of swinging everywhere. This terrible sculpture. And then Adam picks up this ad that's advertising the services of Beetlejuice. And he's like, he doesn't pronounce it properly. He says Beetlejuice or something.
Yeah.
So this is the ad. Is death a problem and not the solution? That's hilarious. Unhappy with eternity, having difficulty adjusting. What does it say? I think it says confidential, real, commercial, or something. So you got to say his name 3 times, as I was saying before. That's the whole mythology. That's sort of playing on the mythology of different urban legends like Bloody Mary. For example, you say the name of the creature 3 times in the mirror, then he or she appears. So Charles is a simple guy. He just wants a quiet cup of tea in the countryside. So he's sort of making a cup of tea, and then Delia's sculpture like crashes through the window as he's making coffee. So Tim Burton sort of emphasized this moment because it's really, really quiet in the scene where he's sort of just quietly making coffee and then smash. The sculpture comes right through the window in the kitchen. And then we see Lydia at the bottom. She's sort of hanging around outside taking pictures, and then she sees Adam and Barb in the window up in the attic. So we suddenly realize, oh, Lydia can see the dead. And then Jane shows up, and then Jane tells Delia that the previous owners drowned. So we get the final piece of the puzzle in reference to the fate of Barb and Adam, that they actually drowned when their car crashed off the bridge. And then Jane also gives Lydia a skeleton key for the house. So like any and of course she sort of goes up to the attic to try to open the door, because they tried to open the door to the attic before, but they couldn't do it. And so she goes up to the attic to try to break in with the skeleton key, which Adam and Bob don't want they don't want her to come in.
Yeah, that's like their only sanctuary in the house.
Yeah, that's like their place. So they don't want anyone intruding, especially Lydia. At this stage, at least, because they sort of become friends with Lydia. But as Lydia is sort of trying to open the door, suddenly they hear a Beetlejuice ad start playing on the television.
I'll possess myself if I gotta. Whoa! Yo, I got demons running all through me. Hey, Jack, now bring a little parts down here. Hell, we got plenty of snakes and lizards for them to play with. There's no problem with that at all. Say it once, say it twice, 3rd time the charm. Chew on a dog.
Chew on a dog. Ooh. Chew on a dog. So that's sort of one of the first times we see Beetlejuice in action. So we see he's kind of a wild character. So Michael Keaton sort of plays it for comedy as well. Actually, Michael Keaton is pretty amazing in this movie in terms of his physical comedy, like his physical acting ability. Like I didn't really associate him with that, like seeing him in Batman or like Multiplicity or some of the other movies where it's like the handsome leading man, But in this one, it's completely different. It's a completely different sort of role for him. So it's good to see Michael Keaton like this. So Adam and Bob are trying to figure out like what to do next, and so Adam decides to draw a door with chalk on the wall because he reads somewhere that you should draw a door on the wall in case of emergency. And so he draws a door, and then he knocks 3 times, and the door opens to a green light. And then Bob and Adam go through the door. And then, as an audience, we're like, "What the hell happened?" Because the next scene is we see the house as it's being renovated from the outside, and it looks like this. So it looks horrific, architecturally speaking. I don't even know where to start with this. So we have, it looks like a birdhouse, but like on this side and this side. So they turn this quaint little village house into this disgusting, like New York postmodern, artistic, though semi-artistic, I guess, disaster. And then but Lydia sort of scares her dad in the next scene because her dad's like watching a bird eat some creature, some small creature, which is weird. But then we cut to Adam and Bob entering some sort of weird waiting room with people who all died in some weird, strange way. So this is another hilarious aspect of the movie, is the dead waiting room. Whatever, the dead social services waiting room. And then the receptionist is Miss Argentina. She's got green skin. And she's very bureaucratic. She's like, you got to follow the rules. You got to fill in this form, blah, 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 blah. And you got to make an appointment, blah, 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 blah. So she's sort of giving them a hard time. And then in the meanwhile, Lydia sort of breaks into the attic with a screwdriver. And then she opens a book about the recently deceased. And so she's learning about what the hell's going on. And so she probably realizes that something's going on with the previous owners of the house in terms of hauntings or things like that. But next we have another extremely hilarious moment in the film.
You want a cigarette?
Oh, no, thank you.
I'm trying to cut down myself.
This is what happens when you die. That is what happens when he dies. And that is what happens when they die. If I knew then what I know now, I wouldn't have had my little accident.
Yeah, so that was when I saw the smoking guy, I just like was so shocked. They were so funny. Like the way he talked.
That scene is I think that's the first plot hole in the movie where like Tim Burton acknowledges it, where you're supposed to look the way he died, but Adam and Barbara don't look that way. They're supposed to look drowned and constantly wet, I guess, and so they kind of made that plot hole for the characters, so they didn't have to go through that.
Yeah, all that makeup and stuff. Yeah, that sort of makes things a lot less complicated, especially
being
if you're limited
constantly
in your
wet
budget.
on dry ground.
Or like bloated and green or gray, whatever you turn when you drown. So that's another aspect.
I guess that would have helped them realize that they were dead sooner. If it looked like they were dead.
Yeah. I don't think that impacted the movie for me. I wasn't really asking that question.
No, I didn't. It didn't. So. I don't think it impacted it negatively. I think it was
no, not at all. So they finally get seen to at the office, and they're guided by this guy who got run over. So he's really flat. He makes a joke, I've been feeling really flat lately. So that was pretty funny. And then we have the Lost Souls room for ghosts who've been exorcised. So it's like death for the dead, that guy says. And so Barbara walking into another room, and it's actually their house, but it's a future. It's 3 months into the future. and the house is completely remodeled. So Delia's had her way. She's like remodeled everything to her specifications. Like her art is like in center stage in the dining room, for example. And the caseworker is an old lady named Juno. And then Barb and Adam are like, hey, we got to get rid of the Dietzes. They're terrible people. They're taking over our house. But Juno doesn't want to help them out doing that. Then she actually warns them against hiring Beetlejuice because he doesn't work well with others. It turns out that Beetlejuice used to be Juno's assistant in the past, but he went off on his own as a bioexorcist who can actually get rid of the living through scaring them primarily. And the only way for them to bring him into existence is to say his name 3 times. And then Juno says, no, they need to get rid of the Dietzes themselves. Like they need to figure it out on their own. And then we get a fly's eye view of the toy town, the model town. And the fly sort of flies over the town. And then we see Beetlejuice pop out of the ground. And he starts talking to the fly and attracts the fly with candy. No, he doesn't pop out of the ground. His hand comes out of the ground.
His arm.
His arm, yeah. And then he
What
sort
was
of
the Zagnut bar?
Yeah, the Zagnut bar. And like as the fly gets captured, the fly says, "Help me!" That was hilarious. And then we get a scene where Charles is on the phone talking to Max, this wealthy investor from New York. And Charles is like, "Oh, there's this incredible investment opportunity in the town. You can literally buy up the whole town, make it into like this theme park, make a ton of money." And then this is the first moment where we get the where Adam and Bob actually try to on their own to get rid of Charles and Delia, because they actually knock on his door and try to scare him, because they actually put sheets on as like someone dressing up as a ghost, but they're actual ghosts dressing up in sheets to look like ghosts to scare Charles. So it's like layers of meaning there, I guess. But then Charles thinks it's just his daughter messing around with him. And so it doesn't work. Like he just ignores them. So actually, this is what Barb and Adam look like as ghosts. So they're just like pretty basic sheets with holes in the eyes. And that doesn't work, of course. But then Lydia shows up. And Lydia starts taking pictures of Barb and Adam as ghosts. But when she walks past, she thinks, oh, it's just Charles and Delia getting up to weird stuff. But then when Lydia sees the picture, because she takes Polaroids, right? So she looks at the Polaroid and there's no feet. The ghosts have no feet. And then she realizes that they're ghosts, but she's not scared. That's the thing with Lydia. She's not scared of the ghosts at all. And then she wonders if they're like the living dead. And then she can actually see them, which is really surprising for both Barb and Adam.
You can see us without the sheets.
Of course I can see you.
Well, how is it that you see us and nobody else can?
Well, I read through that handbook for the recently deceased. It says, live people ignore the strange and unusual. I myself am strange and unusual.
Yeah, so another quote from Lydia about how she's strange and unusual. So, yeah. Yeah. And then Adam and Barb are trying to scare Delia. Okay, but then Lydia's like, oh, my stepmother is sleeping with Prince Valium tonight. So she's basically on drugs to sleep. And so they can't scare her, because they try to scare her, but she thinks it's the TV, so she just switches the TV off. And then Adam and Bob reveal their plan to Lydia, and Lydia's actually fascinated, like she wants to help. but Lydia wants proof that they're actually ghosts, and so Lydia shows Delia the and so Lydia's like, well, maybe I can show her stepmother, proof that there's ghosts living there. And so she shows Delia a picture of the ghost, but she's too distracted by preparing for the guests that are coming over in the evening. So she doesn't really even look at the ghost picture that Lydia has. And so Adam's at a loss. So he's like, oh, maybe I should just contact Beetlejuice then. And so back up in the attic, Barb sees a flashing light in the model town. And she realizes that it's actually Beetlejuice in the town, like it's really tiny. And then she actually says his name 3 times, and they end up like in his realm, like tiny in the model town. But they're sort of given instructions to dig up Beetlejuice first. So they're like digging up this plastic stuff, this plastic model stuff, dirt,
little cardboard.
Yeah. So, and then they reach his coffin, and then Beetlejuice like pops out of the ground. Yeah. So they're basically in the model with him at this stage. And the Beetlejuice is really creepy to Bob. Like he can't keep his hands off her.
Yeah,
And then
it's
Adam
really, really degenerative and perverted.
yeah, he's way creepier than I remember him as a kid. Like it's really slimy in many different respects.
Whoa. Sandworms. You hate them, right? I hate them myself. Come on, kids. What do I have to do to strike a deal with you two, huh?
Yeah, so he's trying to convince them to hire him to scare them. So he's trying to show them, I can be really scary in order to hire them, in order for them to hire him to scare them off. But Bob's had enough. She's like freaked out by this creep. And so she says home 3 times, and they go back to the attic, normal size again. And then Beetlejuice sort of has a fit and like kicks down the tree. And then they see the tiny tree fall down in the model. And then Bob is like, okay, we're going to scare them off themselves. And so it's the night of the big dinner that Delia was talking about. They've got, important people from New York over. It's a big deal. And so the dining room is sort of decorated by Delia's art. Like everyone's really pretentious, and and then Otho starts chatting about the paranormal, because it's also actually a paranormal researcher as well as being an interior decorator. But it's a really awkward dinner because they're not really good people. They're just really pretentious and wealthy. And then Lydia pipes up. She's like, oh, I saw some ghosts around here. But then Delia tries to deflect. Oh, that's ridiculous. There's no ghosts in this house. But then Otho's like, no. Let me hear about the ghosts that you're seeing, Lydia. But then that's when Barbara and Adam intervene. And then that's when they possess everybody at the dinner. And then this is a weird, like, dancing scene in the middle of the dinner to Harry Belafonte's Hey-O, which was a huge song when I was in primary school, even though the song came out in like the 50s, I think. I remember it's popular in school because of this film. And it's sort of this childish sort of type of song as well. But everyone starts dancing really weirdly.
Deadly, black tarantula.
So the dance sort of ends with that like weird like prawn hands grabbing their faces. So, that's pretty funny. And then it turns out that Adam and Bob were the ones behind the dancing and the prawn hands. But instead of scaring them off, the people are actually excited about being possessed, excited about doing the dance and being possessed and having that experience. So it's actually the opposite. It didn't scare them off. It made them even more excited about the prospect that the house is haunted.
Yeah, they thought that they could turn it into a money-making opportunity.
Yeah. So it speaks to like the mindset of the people from the city. There's always some investment opportunity, always some way to make money for them. And so Charles sort of comes up with the idea to use a ghost infestation to attract investment money from Max, especially. So the guy who was on the phone with before. And then Lydia's like, oh, maybe I can get Bob and Adam to join the party. Like they can show up and, we can do some business deal or whatever. But then the ghosts actually don't want to meet them. So Bob and Adam don't want anything to do with them. And so Lydia comes back and she's like, oh, they don't want to come down. And so their guests leave, but then Charles and Delia come up to the attic and sort of break in to the attic. And they see the model of the town, and Charles is like fascinated. But then Otho finds their handbook of the dead and sort of steals it for himself. And then Charles has another idea to turn their house, the haunted house, into a paranormal amusement park. And then Beetlejuice is like, oh, I guess it's my turn to scare them now. And he turns into this really interesting looking snake. What did you think of the Beetlejuice snake?
I just get an animated impression from it.
Yeah.
But it does look scary, like for that time, I guess.
No, I remember as a kid it was pretty scary. Like his sharp teeth and his eyes. I think it's mainly the huge like cat eyes. As a kid, it's like really scary. Just that combination of eyes and teeth, the cat eyes and the teeth. So and he starts messing with him and knocks Otho down the stairs. And then Beetlejuice starts leering at Lydia with his sharp teeth. But then Bob says his name 3 times, which sends him into the underworld. But then Lydia sort of freaks out at that moment. She feels betrayed by them and by Beetlejuice in a way, because she didn't want everything to go to that degree in her interaction with the ghosts.
Well, Lydia doesn't know Beetlejuice yet, so she just
Yeah.
assumes that it's Adam and Barbara that did
Yeah.
this. It's kind of interesting to see that, like, what Beetlejuice is capable of. Like, if he wanted to, he could like kill them if he wanted to.
Yeah.
But
Exactly.
I wonder what the rules is for him. I'm not sure it's explained. Like, if there's a afterlife punishment for killing the living.
For killing humans, yeah, that's true.
Mm.
And so Barbara and Adam have an argument back in the model town, while Beetlejuice is like, he's driving around the town and then crashes into a tree. No, he crashes into a fire hydrant.
Yeah.
And he stumbles out and he starts having an argument with Bob and Adam. And then Barbara like picks him up and to yell at him, but then like spikes come out of him. Which is pretty funny. And then Beetlejuice is like, I wonder where a guy like me can find a little action. And then some sort of demonic like strip club just appears in the town out of nowhere. I can't remember what the strip club was called, but Beetlejuice like struts into the strip club. Although it's pretty funny. Oh, it's called the Inferno Room. That's right. I put in my notes. The Inferno Room. So back at the underworld, back in the office in the underworld, Bob and Adam meet with Juno, the death case worker. Um, and then she's like dealing with this recently deceased football team, who I guess crashed in it died in a plane crash, I suppose. Right? They're like standing around all like burnt.
Or maybe a plane crashed into the field that they're playing on because they're still wearing the uniform and helmets and
Yeah,
stuff.
they're still wearing the uniform. Yeah.
But
So,
yeah, you assume that.
that's a good point, actually.
Yeah.
Why would they be wearing a full uniform on the plane? That's a good point. No, they're probably wearing a full uniform so Tim Burton can show that they're a football team, you know. But
Yeah,
but
it
that's
would
sort
make
of the
sense.
gag. Yeah, that's the gag at that point in the movie is the football team sort of annoying Juno all the time, asking her questions. And so she's sort of mad at Barb and Adam because she tells them that Otho stole the Book of the Dead, the Handbook of the Dead. And she's like, what the hell is going on down there? But then we cut to Charles and Delia. They're sort of wondering, if they made a mistake actually coming out to the countryside. But I like this shot, the framing of this shot. We have Charles and Delia and Otho framed against this backdrop. I thought that was interesting. A really creative shot at that point in the movie.
Does the movie explain why Otho is living with them? Like, I thought originally it would be for the interior design and the renovation of the house, but like he's basically living there, right? It's not dropping in.
No, I think he's living there because it's just such a long trip from New York. Like this is probably upstate New York somewhere. If you know the geography of New York State, like the Hamptons, for example, or Southampton, up north, it's sort of a long trip. It's like us going to like Apollo Bay or something, or like Lawn. So you wouldn't be, traveling back and forth all the time if you had work to do. So I thought that was an interesting shot by Tim Burton. What's next? Okay, so turns out that Max the investor is actually coming to the house to see the ghosts and see if he can make a deal with Charles. I get this hilarious. It was hilarious to me. I don't know for you, but we see Lydia up in her room, like writing a suicide note. So this is hilarious. She like writes the same thing twice, but slightly different the second time. Like she's writing some song lyrics or something, but she takes it so seriously, and it's so I thought that was really funny. And she's wearing a funeral veil. She's like wearing all black and like a funeral veil, writing this suicide note. It's just like over the top. Oh, and this is one of my favorite moments in the movie as well. So they're back at the underworld office, and Juno's like, "Okay, you got to prove to me that you can scare them. Now show me what you got." I thought that was amazing. The special effects in that was amazing. Like that was perfect. Like the stop motion animation. I don't think it will look anywhere near as good as CGI. Because it fits so well with the rest of it, and it looks so freaky as stop motion. What was your impression of that?
Like I remember watching that as a kid, and that's hilarious. It's like scary and kooky, but it was like fun. It was entertaining for us. It didn't really scare us. Like we like those things. It wasn't gruesome and gross or messed up.
Yeah.
So it was at a level that, like as children, we enjoyed. So that's one of the reasons that, like we look back at Beetlejuice and it's those scenes that we enjoyed the most. I think.
No, yeah, it's just so creative and striking, visually. And I think as a kid, I was a little bit scared by that. But, like, for example, I was watching Nightmare on Elm Street. It's different. It's sort of this fun type of scary.
Yeah, definitely. Like, Nightmare on Elm Street's
Okay,
like
I think
all
it's
about.
back. Okay, so they sort of leave the office with their scary new looks. All right, I think I'm back. So they leave the office with their scary new looks. And then Lydia sort of goes up to the attic to try to find them, but all she finds is Beetlejuice. And so Beetlejuice is tiny. He's in the town, and he's like yelling up at Lydia, "Help me, help me! We can make a deal. I can help you, and you can help me." And so, but the thing is that Beetlejuice can't tell her his name. That's the one thing that he can't do is tell people to say his name 3 times, because he can't actually tell them his name. And so they play charades, which is pretty funny. And she figures out his name is Beetlejuice, because he actually Beetle breakfast. She says like, "Oh, Beetle breakfast." And then she says it twice, like just within conversation. She says his name 3 times, and so he's like, "Oh, say it one more time." But then she's like, "Oh wait, you were that snake, weren't you?" And then she's like, "No, I'm not going to say your name again." But then Adam and Bob, they have this discussion about what to do next, but then they're in there like this scary disguises mode. But then they're sort of having second thoughts about scaring them away, because they don't really want to scare them in any tangible way. They don't want to hurt them, even if it's mentally. So they're not sure what to do next. And so they encounter Lydia in the attic, and Lydia's like, "Oh, I want to be dead too." But it seems like being dead doesn't make anything easier. So Bob and Adam resolve to tell Lydia that, they're going to tell, their family to stay. So Delia and Charles can just stay. It's easier that way. But then downstairs, Charles is doing a presentation to Max the investor. And this is hilarious because Charles has a plan for an insect zoo and a wax museum dedicated to the paranormal. So that's Charles's big plan for the future. Is an insect zoo. And it sounds good on paper, but I don't know how. I mean, it could work, I suppose. Like if the insect zoo is part of a bigger display,
But how are you going to get so many people to visit the town though with just an insect zoo?
Yeah, it'll be mostly tourists. Like if you're staying upstate on vacation or something. But it seems like a ridiculous idea. But basically, Charles wants to turn the whole town into some sort of paranormal theme park. But Max actually wants to see some ghosts before he can commit to any sort of investment. But then Lydia comes downstairs and she says, "Oh, the ghosts aren't actually here anymore. Sorry." But then Otho's like, "I got an idea. I can be the paranormal contact for Charles and Delia because I have the Book of the Dead." But then he says to carry out the ritual, he needs some personal belongings of Barb and Adam. And so they remember there's the wedding dress and the groom's suit that they were married in. And so they sort of put the wedding clothes on the table, and everyone's like around the table to perform the ritual. And so when Otho performs the ritual, Barb starts disappearing in the attic, and then she appears in a wedding dress. But when she stands up in her wedding dress, she starts to like decompose and deteriorate, like she's been dead for ages.
I thought that special effects were cool. How she slowly
that's pretty amazing,
withering, and then it's like she got this sunken sad face
Yeah,
near the
yeah,
end.
that's kind of disturbing for me as a kid, seeing that her becoming like a skeleton, basically. Not a skeleton, like a corpse. But then you realize that Otho's performing necromancy, which is like really bad, like black magic. Just casually performing necromancy in the house, and everyone's just okay with it. And so Bob and Adam are like decomposing very rapidly because Adam's there too. But then Lydia's like, Beetlejuice, you need to help us. You can see Beetlejuice in his traditional, like, stripy suit. Like, he's barely in the stripy suit. Like, he's only in the stripy suit at the end, really. Like, everyone knows Beetlejuice in the stripy suit. But to me, it's like the stripy suit reminds me of like old-fashioned prison attire, you know.
Oh yeah.
Except the stripes are, I think, are horizontal and for prison attire. But it's sort of this distinctive outfit, and we see Lydia as a goth queen with like beads and a black outfit and a spiky bangs.
Got a collar as well.
And a choker. Yeah. You can tell, you know, Winona Ryder had a lot of fun with that role. And then Lydia's asking Beetlejuice for help, but of course he's not going to help just for nothing. So they make a deal that she's going to marry him, and then he will help them. And so she has to say his name 3 times.
Beetlejuice. Beetlejuice. Beetlejuice.
It's showtime.
I remember as a kid that moment in the movie was so exciting. Like the way Keaton played it, like it's showtime.
I wonder if Jim Carrey's The Mask stole that line. It's showtime. Right?
Oh, yeah.
He says showtime.
Does
Right?
he say Jim Carrey? I haven't seen The Mask for bloody ages.
I think it's showtime. That's one of his like iconic lines from The Mask.
It's party time.
Is it party time?
Yeah, I think it's party time.
No, that's
wait.
Arnie. I don't know. I thought it was Jim Carrey saying it's showtime.
No, I think it's his party time. Yeah. From what I'm Googling. I think it's showtime is pretty common.
It must be.
Yeah, in terms of a movie cliche, it's showtime. I'm sure we can look up different movies where that's been in, but and so Beetlejuice like ascends from the model town and he's looking kind of creepy. But he's got like long arms that's like curled up into themselves. And then his arms like fold out into hammers. And then the 2 guests, Max and his wife, I guess, they're like at the bottom of like a test your strength machine. And then the hammers like come down, like bash the machine, and then they go like flying through the roof. And the next Beetlejuice gets rid of Otho by turning his suit white, I suppose. And that's what has freaked out Otho for some reason. That was enough for Otho to like get out of there. I suppose he turned his suit into like some ugly suit. So some ugly white suit. That's what like scared him off, I guess. And so once Beetlejuice has gotten rid of them, he doesn't actually do anything to Charles and Delia, does he? Like directly, I don't think.
No, I don't. No,
Because
I
I
don't think
didn't
so.
make a note of that.
Mm.
Because I suppose if Beetlejuice scares away the rest of the people, Charles and Delia, will get the message. But Beetlejuice is like, okay,
Oh
I did
yeah,
my
he didn't. Yeah, he didn't touch them because he needed them as witnesses for the wedding.
yeah for the wedding. Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. So now Beetlejuice is like, oh, it's time to get married, and so you can tell that Lydia is overjoyed by the prospect of getting married to Beetlejuice. Actually, let's talk about Beetlejuice and the outfit or the makeup. So it seems like he's got like slime or fungus on the side of his head, which sort of bleeds into his hair. I guess he's like modeled off like this drunk, like the prototypical like homeless drunk person that sort of harasses people on the streets on like on the streets of New York, maybe. That's the impression I get.
Yeah.
Like the basis for
Yeah.
the Beetlejuice
I just
character.
assume it's just filth that he's covered in.
Yeah,
He
everything's
just
filth.
yeah. It could be the bug guts, like he eats bugs. He might run it through his hair, and he might even exfoliate with it. Who knows?
Yeah. Yeah. No, everything's sort of associated with death and decay and, disgusting stuff with Beetlejuice. And so Beetlejuice starts making Delia's sculptures move. And then the sculptures like capture Delia and Charles so they can't run anywhere. So they can, like you said, they can actually be, witnesses for the wedding. And so the person marrying them is this weird creature. Like I don't even know what that's supposed to be based on. Like I suppose it could be a gray alien with the big eyes and like the gray skin, but it's just like some weird freaky creature. I don't know. Just another interesting visual aspect of the movie. But that's the thing about Beetlejuice. Like there's stuff like this throughout the entire movie. It sort of makes it really interesting to watch. That's why it's so fun, And so Lydia is like, oh, I can just say your name 3 times and stop this sham of a wedding, but then he stops her from speaking. He stops a lot of people from speaking at the end of the movie, and then he starts talking in the voice of Lydia. Like, starts speaking for her in her voice, which is pretty funny. And then Adam tries to say his name 3 times, and then Beetlejuice like takes his teeth out, and then like traps him in the town. And then Bob tries to say his name, but then he like traps her mouth with this like
Zips.
metal stuff. Oh,
First
zip.
it's like
right.
a zip,
The zip, and
and
then the metal
then she unzips it. Yeah.
Yeah, that was funny.
Yeah,
That was really good special effects as well.
Yeah.
And then Beetlejuice like banishes her to the desert with the sandworm. And then Adam like drives a mini car out of the town and crashes into Beetlejuice's foot. And then Bob like crashes to the wall on the sandworm. And then the sandworm like eats Beetlejuice. So that's basically how they eliminate Beetlejuice, how they win, how they achieve victory over Beetlejuice. And then the next day, life seems pretty normal for Adam and Bob and Lydia. We see Lydia like leaving school at the end of the day, and then she comes home to Bob and Adam, and she's like, "Oh yeah, I got an A in math." And then the music starts playing, Jump in the Line by Harry Belafonte. So we get this musical section at the end where everyone's dancing, especially Lydia. So Lydia's like dancing in the air. Meanwhile, we get our final images of Beetlejuice in the waiting room with the head shrink and this guy.
Witch doctor.
And Beetlejuice, the witch doctor, yeah, and the Beetlejuice like tries to steal his number. Because Beetlejuice's number is like in the millions. It's like some million something. And then his number 4, he's next. So he steals his number, but then like the witch doctor like shrinks Beetlejuice's head, which is hilarious. And the shrink head guy's looking at him like, what the hell? I thought that was hilarious. And then after this hilarious scene, we see Lydia dancing to Jump in the Line. And then the credits roll, and that's the end of the movie. So pretty tight in terms of runtime, about 90 minutes. It's pretty funny and entertaining throughout the whole movie. I'm really glad we chose this for the Halloween special. Had heaps of fun watching it again. What was your overall impression?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, well, Beetlejuice is one of my favorite characters of all time, and I think Michael Keaton, like he does some roles that I don't think he gets enough props for his acting as well. And Beetlejuice, like the movie, is just fun, quirky, kooky, kind of like a horror movie, but it's like a playful Tim Burton imagining of what the afterlife could be. So it's really interesting kind of movie to watch, especially as kids. And like now as an adult, it's like taking a stroll down memory lane. It's definitely good to watch it again.
But Tim Burton sort of took the elements of horror and sort of transferred it to his sort of artistic sensibility and playfulness and imagination. So in a way, it's sort of creepy. Like it has creepy elements, but it's presented in a way that's not off-putting in any way. I'm just sharing Michael Keaton's filmography.
I was kind of surprised that originally Beetlejuice was going to be a serious horror movie.
Was it?
And they were going to get Wes Craven to direct it.
Oh, really?
But Tim Burton picked it up, and he got a couple of writers, and they turned it into like some comedy elements, more of a comedy movie. Yeah. So originally, it was going to be like it would be more violent and gory, and Beetlejuice was originally like a sexual predator trying to sexually assault Lydia instead of marrying her.
Oh,
so,
jeez.
Yeah.
Maybe that could be the remake.
Beetlejuice 2.
The violent remake. The R-rated violent remake. Yeah.
The juicening.
But this is Michael Keaton. So 88 Beetlejuice. Do you remember the Dream Team? I don't think that's a basketball movie, is it?
Dream Team.
They got Batman in 89, of course. I voiced Batman the video game, which was interesting. I think I saw Pacific Heights at Blockbuster, but I didn't watch it. Same with One Good Cop. Batman Returns, as I said, my favorite 90s Batman movie. Multiplicity, like a romantic comedy. I remember Keaton in Jackie Brown. He was amazing in that one. So Jackie Brown, one of my top 3 Tarantino movies. Out of Sight, of course, with Clooney and J-Lo. That was an amazing movie. We might do Out of Sight one day.
Oh yeah, yeah, that was a really good movie.
Yeah, that was a fun movie back then. I didn't see Other Guys. He was in Toy Story 3.
Oh, you haven't seen Other Guys? Really?
That's with
That's with Mark Wahlberg and
Oh, Wahlberg and Ferrell.
Will Ferrell, yeah.
Oh, well, maybe I did see it.
And
yeah, I think I did see it. Yeah.
Yeah,
Keaton's in this.
I think Keaton's like the lieutenant. So, and he's really funny in this as well. He's not in it. He's not in it much, but he's captain. Yeah,
Derek
so he's
Jeter.
hilarious.
Maybe I should watch other guys again. This is a hilarious cut.
Eva Mendes. Yeah, you gotta watch it. I remember watching it in the cinema. It's hilarious. It's some really good one-liners, good jokes in it.
All right, so that was Beetlejuice, another wonderful movie to cover in our series, A Sip of Cinema. I enjoyed it. Continue next week. We will be doing, not next week, the week after, because this is bi-weekly, of course, but the next episode will definitely be Friday. The Hood classic, I suppose, from the mid-90s. Ice Cube and Chris Tucker. Bernie Mac. Yeah, that's another amazing cast in that movie. So we'll get to that next time. All right, so Beetlejuice, I definitely recommend it. It's one for the whole family. All right. Like there's jokes you may not get that the adults will get, which is always good. Keeps everyone interested, and the kids will be interested in all the crazy visual stuff, even though it might creep them out. Any final words for Beetlejuice?
Yeah, I think Beetlejuice is great for the family. It's only got one F-bomb in it, which is surprising. But otherwise, it's definitely PG, like a PG movie.
Definitely PG.
So yeah, check it out.
Probably not for 5-year-olds, I should say. Like maybe 10 and above.
Seven
now
plus.
that you mention it, 7+. Yeah.
No,
even though we were watching like RoboCop at 10, so you can't judge it based on what we were watching at that age.
Yeah, so we turned out all right. So if your kids watch it, they should be. They should be.
If it wasn't for those movies, we wouldn't have this show. That's for sure. Those watching those movies led to a show. So there you go. It was all worth it at the end. Okay, I'll see everyone next time. Don't forget to like and subscribe. See you next time.
Cheers. Latest.
Cheers.